What's up, everybody? We have a game with the white pieces against Abdullah Akkad, rated 1719. You already know. Bishop's opening. That's what we're going for. And on move 2, he goes h6. Doesn't threaten anything. Obviously, a bad move because it doesn't develop. But it's not a losing move. I mean, it's still playable. But it's nothing to worry about, obviously. That's all. So we're going to continue with our normal development scheme. Bringing the knight here, the bishop here. What is happening? What is happening? Okay. So he's bringing his queen here. What does this threaten? This pawn. Now that my bishop moved away. What a weird move. The drawback to the queen move, he didn't develop. I almost want to let him take it. But I think even queen f3 comes with a checkmate threat. So I'm just going to go queen f3 because it comes with a checkmate threat. This position, not this position, but a similar position when white goes, when you've seen me in other games go queen g4, you've seen black try to defend with queen f6, but it's not a good move there because we have knight d5. But when we put our queen here, he doesn't have the corresponding knight d4 because he wasn't developed, right? So it's not the same, and so we can take advantage of it by putting our queen here. And he didn't have this move. He develops his knight, which threatens to do this, but the drawback is it doesn't address. He didn't ask himself what my threat was, and now I take this pawn with check. He has to go to the left, and I take this pawn with checkmate. So that's the end of the game. Because this is a, I don't know, 2-minute game, 2-minute video or something, it's obviously over. I'm going to take this time to answer a question someone had, which is, why bother attacking anywhere but the king side? Like, if the king's on the king side, why do anything anywhere else? And maybe I can show you, I guess, some general idea, and that's the long and short of it is your opponent's not going to let you checkmate him if he's any good. So where's the analysis board? There we go. So if I go here and my opponent doesn't go here, right? Like when my opponent goes here, what does that mean? That means this pawn can never go to e6. What does that mean? That means that this diagonal is weaker than it would be. So that means I could put my bishop here and target this pawn. So now I have something to work with, something to target. So I can put my bishop here. You know, I can put a knight here or a queen here. I can try to, maybe I can push f4, castle my king, and have the rook also apply pressure. And so those are ideas where I can attack the king side. But your opponent's not always going to let you do that. Maybe your opponent plays e6. You no longer have access to this diagonal, like it's no longer a good diagonal. Which means you're going to have a lot harder time getting to his king. Now he's also not even, like this isn't a very active move, so he's not going to get to your king. But it doesn't mean you can just checkmate him because you feel like it or he played a passive move. And so if you, I don't know, you just develop normal and he develops, you know, passively, you do something like this. I don't know, you have some position like this and you're like, well, why only do something here? I mean, you should try to do something there. You should go for some type of attack on this side until your opponent defends. And what happens is your opponent, if he's playing accurately, will defend. So whose turn is it here? It's white's turn. So let's say you're bringing stuff to the king side because you think it's good, and he just pushes, attacks the center. if you trade, things open up, and then when stuff is open in the center, you can no longer attack his king, because if you can picture these, the entire D file and E file, let's just say they were empty, right? Both sides are going to be able to put their pieces wherever they want on the board. They're going to have so many options for all of their minor pieces. The bishops will be open, the rooks and queens will have full scope, and that applies for both sides. That means that there's ultra mobility. I can get from my side to your position in one move, and so the position's very sharp, and the price of every move matters, and there's going to be tactics and things hanging. And so if you're going to try to do something on the king side or move pawns, your opponent's going to do something in the middle, and he's just going to overwhelm you. It's hard to explain without, I guess, an example. But another thing is, like, so let's say you keep the center closed, right? He goes here, and let's just say he defends well, right? There's no more attack to be had on a king that's defended well. And if you keep pushing your luck, or you keep trying to attack it when black's position is soundly defended, then you're only going to be making weaknesses in your position, and you're not going to be getting anything out of it, because the attack's not going to work. Like, just because you attack does not mean it's going to work. If he defends accurately, it just doesn't work. So you continue your attack, he defends. You continue your attack, he defends. You continue your attack, he defends. Like, and there's no attack. So at some point, depending on at what point that is, there's going to be nothing left for you to do on that side of the board. And if you force a move, it's just going to be a mistake, because maybe your bishop and your knight are already in the best position. If you try to do something else, you're going to worsen that position. And so you say, okay, the center's locked, I can't do anything here. The king side attack has come to a point where my opponent defended well. There's no more progress to be made. Let me gain space on the queen side. Something like that. Yeah, also your opponent can just overprotect his king, like, from the start. So, like, I don't know. I mean, you can try to attack it, but there's absolutely no guarantee you're gonna break through. And actually, a good example I just thought of is, how do I flip the board? Flip board. A good example is, like, when people play the French. I don't play the French. Oops, that's not it. When people play the French, it's like, once this pawn structure is on the board, for example, white's king is here, and he's going to castle this way. But saying, oh, the king is going to be on g1, let's, I don't know, attack the king, doesn't make any sense, because you're not going to be able to do anything on this side of the board because of space, because this pawn's here, you can't develop here. And that's why in the French, especially like in the advance, you always go c5, you know, knight here, queen here, bishop here, and you push this way, and you play on the queen side, even though the king's not there. And that happens in every opening where your pawn chain faces towards the queen side, which is a gigantic amount of them. But white should attack on the king side, and not because the king is there, but because that's the way his pawns give him space. So he has this space. If you shade that all in, white, and we're gonna have this space, and you could shade this all in black, this triangle. And so we're just trying to play where we have the space, because that's what makes the sense. And what happens when you try to play outside of your pawn chain, like if you shade in the area of your pawn chain, you can call this like the safety zone of your space. So if you're playing in here, you're kind of safe. If you decide to go outside of the safe zone, which I just made that name up, and go for his king, so like you start putting a piece here, a piece here, I don't know, you reroute this knight here magically, you're outside of the safe zone, and you're playing inside of his safe zone. So he's gonna have lots of, you know, ways to kick those pieces. He's gonna have lots of play, and that's basically the reason. It's basically like the area of a triangle. If you got to just play in your area. If you remember from math, they make you shade in on the area of the triangle when you calculate it. Play in your area of the board. Take the pawns, right? And if you want your safe zone to increase, you have to move the pawns, right? So if I move, technically, it's really like this. Hold on. Right? And you can tell from this awkward drop right here on the C file, right here, that the wave, the area underneath the curve is not complete. So if you want to gain more space, right, you would play B5, and then all of a sudden the area under the curve would look like this, and then you'd have the drop on the B file. You play A5, C4, and you can see the curve just starting to go up, the mountain building, and your space increases, all this area in that curve. So it's not about where your opponent's king is, it's about where the area of the curve is under the pawns. That must sound weird because no one's ever talked about that, but that's one way to look at it. People always mention, oh, whichever way your pawn chain is pointing, but just saying that doesn't actually like help you or mean anything. It doesn't help you understand chess. So, but now you know the area under the curve is literally the mathematical number of squares that you have access to behind your pawns safely, right? What behind your pawns means is it's harder for your opponent to reach them. So it's the safe zone. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Kind of a tangent. It was a dumb game. Somehow a 1700 blundered. Checkmate on like move 4, but what are you going to do? These people exist. They never heard of chess principles. They have not been watching my videos. If you have any more questions, submit your rapid videos. I'll gladly review them for you and point out all the messed up ways that you think in your games. Good luck and goodbye.